We now have Damodar Mauzo's Konkani novel being launched, Jeevdiyon Kai Chamaru, in translation by Jerry Pinto. Jerry Pinto's own new translations of Tukaram will also be launched on another day. Jerry Pinto is a poet, novelist, translator, and recipient of the Wyndham Campbell Prize from Yale University and the Sahitya Academy Award. His published works include the novels M and the Big Whom, The Education of Yuri, Murder in Mahim, and 2 poetry collections. He has translated Damodar Mauzo's latest novel into English, titled Boy Unloved. May I request from the audience Vinuta Malya to please come to the stage. Thank you. Vinuta Malya is a journalist with more than 2 decades of experience in publishing as a book editor, with a keen interest in the business of publishing in India. She is visiting faculty of journalism, Flame University, Pune, and visiting faculty of English, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She is deeply involved in PARI, the People's Archive of Rural India. The author and the translator will be in conversation with her. Bhai, or Damodar Mauzo, is contemporary Goa's literary giant. Recipient of the Gyanpith and Sahitya Academy Awards, he has written 5 short stories, fiction anthologies, novels, of which Kamalin has been translated into 12 languages. He has written scripts for films and won prizes for them. He has spoken up fearlessly even when there was a threat to his life to uphold what he thought is correct. He has served a 5-year term as a member of the Executive Board and Finance Committee of Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. Presently, he is the co-founder and co-curator of the Goa Arts and Literature Festival. Handing over the mic to the team. Vinuta Malya, please come. How do we do this? Yeah, this is on and this is off. Okay.
I just wanted to say, Mamang, Meena, Ranjit, you make us proud. Thank you.
Let me with us.
Yeah, come.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, not
Yeah, boy, let's see.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for that introduction, and thank you, GALF and the ICG, for hosting this festival year after year, of which I've been a regular, one of the regulars that Dr. Pushkar was mentioning. But it's the first time that I'm getting to be in conversation with Bhai, our beloved Bhai, and Jerry, 2 stalwarts, big names in the Konkani universe, and I am the outsider here.
No one is an outsider.
But what I mean to say is
Is Konkani.
Yes, so I'm an intimate outsider who shares connections with language, and who, when I come here each time, I try and build more connections with my ancestry, with the language that we all speak, and also learn so much about how much Goa has changed, perhaps, and the culture of Goa, which is so different from what would have been when my ancestors left. So this is each time a learning experience for me, and I'm delighted and honored to be here, and especially to lead this conversation today about this book, which Bhai, in fact, only saw this evening for the first time. The books have just come. So we'll keep this as a short conversation because we'll move for dinner soon. But I wanted to begin by asking you, Bhai, that this is, I mean, the novel is about a teenage protagonist. And this is, you are in your mid-70s, am I right? And
Nearing 80.
okay, nearing 80. And at this time, most novelists write about aging and loss and grief and memory. But what made you go back to a teenage, to go the other way in that sense and talk about a teenage protagonist? And does it draw from your own adolescence in some way?
I'm not sure, but I don't think I've grown old. And I always feel one with the youth. So that probably led me to take up the issues related with the millennial children of this new century. And I have been very close to my grandchildren, and they also share their anxieties with me, what happening in the college, what happens around them. So probably that is the reason why I thought I should write about them. That's all.
Jerry, my next question is to you about, you've been translating from Marathi for a while. And
one book from Hindi.
And one book from Hindi, Swadesh Deepak. This is your first Konkani book. So did you have to learn, unlearn? How did it happen?
I tell you, the problem with Konkani is that it is a wonderful language and it is also a shapeshifter. So Bhai comes from South Goa, I come from North Goa, and therefore there are two Konkanis inside our heads. They are Doodh Bahins. They are both mothers, fed from the same milk. They are nurtured by the same land. They are coddled by the same rivers, but they are also fundamentally different. And Bhai also writes in Devanagari, and he is a great proponent of the idea of Konkani to be written in the Devanagari script. As well, perhaps it should be. So when I was reading it, I often had to read it aloud to hear the word inside my head. Because what Devanagari will not do is give you O's. It will not give you zhs. And we have O's and zhs in Konkani because we have a Portuguese imprint, and you have to hear Bhai speaking Portuguese. He speaks an elegant, beautiful Portuguese. Once he was talking to me and he said something in Portuguese, and one of my cousins was there and she said, he's Christian. So I said, in all but faith. Because he speaks a beautiful, elegant Konkani Portuguese that was taught to him back in the day. It is probably not a Portuguese that's spoken in Portugal anymore. So it's just wonderful to be working with this. Learning and unlearning, I think, is something that you do with every single project that you take up. Because, Daya Pawar's Balut was Dalit Marathi. When I did the Varkari poets, it was 13th century to 19th century Marathi. When you're doing someone like Swadesh Deepak, it's Hindi, but it's Hindi with Urdu and Punjabi in the middle, and certainly misquoted English. So each time you're confronted with the way language continually shapeshifts and challenges you to catch the shapeshifting in another language.
So what drew you to this particular novel?
First of all, it's Bhaiya. Okay. Two things. One is quite like you. When I was reading it, I was fascinated by the fact that the protagonist is a 14-year-old. And it seemed to me as if, Bhai has never said this, but I think he was conducting a Gedanken, a thought experiment, asking himself, what would happen to a child if it grew up without love? Vipin Porab, our protagonist, has two parents from hell they do not ever physically maltreat him, but they emotionally deform him. And they deform him to the extent that he is probably very intelligent at some cerebral level, but at an emotional level, he is almost arid and a desert. Into this world, a beautiful spring rain comes, a young woman who can love openly despite her own fractured relationship with romance and with the body. She offers love like a buffet, and he seems picky, choosy, and reluctant. And I thought, as an experiment in how necessary love would be to our complete development, this was an astonishing book, because there is a certain trajectory that is followed. It's a trajectory of emotional growth. And I often think that that when we do the Bildungsroman, we do the growth, how do we plot this development? And I saw a very beautiful pattern of development here that I was eager to explore in English.
And did you notice a change in Bhai's writing style from, say, Carmelin, which was his his early novel, which won the Sahitya Academy?
I'm very lazy, and I'm shamelessly lazy at some fundamental level. So I read...
You can't beat me.
I read Carmelin in English. And despite reading it in English, something came bursting through. Like I read it as if... some part of me was sociology, like a sociologist. Some part of me was saying, Chetty, is she ours? Like, this is our Carmelin from our Goa, living this kind of life? In that kind of almost stupid upper caste way where you cannot imagine what life would be like. So another part of me was almost shocked by this novel. A third part of me was a very young writer who was standing back and saying, I want to write like this, this is how he did this, I want to do that. There's various Jerrys who are reading a book. There's not just one Jerry. This Jerry, now reading Carmelin again in Konkani, is deeply desirous of retranslating it. Really wants to do. Like, I want to see how this Carmelin will shape under my hands. I want this Carmelin I want some ownership in this Carmelin. So I think that is one of the things that as a translator one does. You want to say, oh look, he set out a feast. Oh look, what a beautiful thing he did. Can I co-own this in a small way? Can I be part of this beautiful thing that has happened here? And so, one of my dreams is to translate Carmelin, probably.
What do you think of that, Bhai?
Well, I'm listening to him as if he's talking about some wonderful book, somewhere written by somebody. Nice to listen to him. Yeah. By the way, I just want to show you. Hold on. This is the Konkani book, which runs into 352 pages. And though he has not translated it verbatim, but yet it is almost the same, 360. So they look different, but they are the same.
So this is the third translation of the novel, right?
Yeah. In fact, when I finished writing this book, and I believe that once it is written, it belongs to it goes in the public domain. I don't have any more right to speak about that. That is why I preferred this to speak about the book. Now that it is gone into translation, into English, I think it is Jerry's book. It is no more my book. But I was extremely happy when I don't know whether I can say Jerry agreed to or he offered to, but whatever it is, I was very happy that Jerry has taken up to translate it. And I have never seen any writer keeping up the word. He wrote to me that you should not be in a hurry. I may complete it. I'll take my own time. And not only that, he gave me the deadline. It will be ready. The first draft will be ready in this month. The final draft will be ready in this month. And he kept up his word. And
and I have to say this also, because it was my first, your first anything is always a moment, right? It was my first Konkani translation, so I was very unsure and very shaky. And so I told Bhai, I want to come and I want to read the whole thing to you. And I want you to be sitting there in front of me, and I'll come. And then he said, no, come and stay with me. Now, this was wonderful, of course, because his wife is a phenomenal cook, and therefore, I would get bed and board, and I'd be in this lovely house. And with Bhai, like getting up to Bhai in the morning is like two suns rising in the sky. So it was lovely. We went on walks together. We looked at place, like I went and saw his old shop. We went into a bakery where there was Mr. Noronha, who was sitting there with his and telling me all about how he baked his bread. It was a lovely time. The sad thing is that I had bargained for a week because I thought, Bhai is of a certain age, so I'll have to take it gently. So I said, I'll come for a week. 3 days later, we were done. We just read the whole book together. I read it. Shaila was a quiet participant and listener as well. We sat in that room and the only problem was that suddenly Bhai had become the flavor of the month with the Jnanpith. Okay, so he was going all over the place, and Shaila said to me at one of those functions where he was being given a shawl, she said, now Atang, we'll have to open a shawl shop. How many shawls have come? I thought that was very sweet. So, the benefit of translating a book is an increased intimacy with the mind of the writer, because you burrow into the mind of the writer and you're there. So I do not think I would know Bhai as well as I know him now, because I have translated his book, because I've worked with his language. His language has become a constant inside my head. And the reason why I had to keep that deadline was because he was so busy. So he'd given me that week, and we both cut out, December is kind of festival season. So we both cut out that week and said, this is it. This is the time we will do it. And it was wonderful working with him, because I think we had a few discussions and a few issues that had to be sorted out. But largely, and the fundamental thing I think about the translation is, what is the tonality of the original? And the tone of his book I saw as Vairagya, as the missingness of something. And that missingness, the missingness of light inside the house, the missingness of trees outside in the garden, which his father has kind of ravaged in the way that I could only think of Ian McEwan's Cement Garden, where the father keeps covering the garden with cement all the time in an act of violence. This Vairagya was what struck me. And I thought it was a beautiful book and a challenge to bring Vairagya as a Sai Bhava into English, which is not, the language of loss and yearning in the way that almost any Indian language can be, simply because we have an understanding of what it is to lose that is really very deep and fundamental.
Was this the first time you were working directly with the author in the translation process?
Oh, totally. I think the only other time, the other two times I worked with, the other times I worked with living writers, I sent in the manuscript and I said, take a look and see. One was Sachin Kundalkar, the other was Ganesh Matkari. And they both met me in coffee shops and we sat down and chatted and finished it in 2 hours, in 2 days. Perhaps I could have done that with Bhai as well, but I wanted to go and live with him.
I was so envious.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get that opportunity, why shouldn't you, no?
Indeed. And Bhai, this is, as I said, this is the third translation of the book. The first one was in Kannada.
Mine is the best.
Of course. The first one was in Kannada, and then it was translated into Marathi by Shaila Mai. So
okay, that might be better.
So how was your experience working with different translators? And especially Shailamai also.
The translator of Marathi book was living with me, so it was very easy. We discussed almost every page, every chapter, and I think it took off well. In fact, I was a bit apprehensive when my book went into translation, both when it went into Kannada and also into Marathi. But I'm very happy to say that both the languages got a very good. They gave very good reception to the translated versions. More than what I got from my Konkani readers. That was really very satisfying for me.
Laws na tungta.
It's not that. I think Goans by nature do not react immediately. They wait. Even for Carmelian, nobody came out in praise of it. But whatever little they said was enough for me to be happy. The same thing here. But then I thought it would be very difficult to go into translation, particularly into English, because there are chapters which speak of the Ghadis, we call them, in Konkani, and there are many things which are related only to Goa, which sometimes are very difficult to go into other languages, particularly non-Indian languages. So, of course, thanks to Vivek, he has taken the novel into English in entirety. Thank you. Yeah, Jory, sorry. Did I say? By the way, I think I was little afraid that Jerry might go on pampering Shaila here for our food, because I have been relishing every day. But I really, when Jerry came and spent about 4 or 5 days with me, it was a wonderful togetherness, I would say, as if we both belong to the same ethos, the same culture, same language, though he knows Konkani very well. Only thing is shy of speaking in Konkani. I think we should bring him in Goa, keep him imprisoned somewhere, and then he pick up the language, master the language.
So the Kannada translation, the title is Jiva Kodale Chaha Kudiyale. And in Marathi too, the title follows the original, which is Jiva Dyava Ki Chaha Gyava. But you chose Boy Unloved.
Okay, we chose Boy Unloved.
Okay.
Let's get it clear.
Author and translator chose.
Okay,
Boy.
author has to say something.
Frankly, when I write, the titles come to me. Unless the titles come to me, I do not finish, whether it's a short story or a novel. But here also, as I was as the novel was being written, I came across Albert Camus, discussed his works, and suddenly I came across that quote as a part of the narrative. The quote was, it is a very famous quote, should I kill myself or have a cup of coffee? But here the protagonist was fond of tea, so I changed it, and I think that is this quote appears in his mind towards the end of the novel, and I didn't have to struggle for any other title. So I gave the same title, Jiv Diu Ka Cha Maru. But then probably in Marathi also it was Jiv Deva Ki Cha Gyava. In Kannada also it meant the same, but when it went into English, it has changed. I think when he says we, yes, I was consulted, but Jerry would be better in a better position to explain.
Okay, we asked a series of young people, because the book is really aimed at young people. Would you buy a book called Should I Kill Myself or Drink Tea? And they said it sounded dismissive of suicide as something that is for many of them something that has claimed a friend, something that has wounded a family. And so I cast about inside my head and finally came up with Boy Unloved. Because I felt that was in some way a summing up of my response to the book. This was my handle on Vipin, and I think if you get a handle on the central character, you see that he is extraordinarily bright in his abstract intelligence and extraordinarily dim-witted in his emotional intelligence, which is somewhat like most men. Mm-hmm. Yeah, then you kind of see that Boy Unloved might be a suitable title. But we ran it past Bhai, who was very generous in accepting it, and that's what the...
So Jerry, I read the first page of the Konkani original, and there's so much lyricism in the Konkani. How did you deal with that when you were bringing it into English?
See, I think the problem with English is that it is right now skeptical of lyricism. In the sense that modernism is a virus that has affected us all and made us frightened of lyricism, and it has to be contained. Now, there are certain exceptions which are allowed, I think. For instance, the Latin Americans may be lyrical, may be allowed lyricism, but that's part of a larger... I don't know how to put it, but I think there is a certain problem. When you are actually moving language, you want to look at what the original, not what the effect of the original is, but what is the intention of the writer in creating that lyricism. And I believe that the intention of Bhai's intention was to create a lyrical moment and then diffuse it, suddenly like puncture it, and present you with this specter of grimness. And so that's what I tried to do. Now, I'm saying this again. If you can read it in Konkani, please read it in Konkani, right? Even if it will, and please don't say things like, I read it very slowly. I read Konkani slowly. I will come and slap you. Because reading slowly is not a bad thing. Reading slowly is a good thing. So if you are forced by your unfamiliarity to read slowly, that is the language doing you a favor and creating for you a space for contemplation and reflection in your slowness, which will not be granted to you in the speed read with which you do English. So please read it slowly in the original if you can. And if you can't, then of course read it in English.
So is that how you've been working on your translations? Because these are now 3 languages already, and I'm sure you'll handle a lot more.
तेरे मुंह में घी शक्कर और क्या कहूँ मैं?
So is this how you do it? Do you read it slowly, and do you kind of sit with it for a long time?
So my first reading is lying in bed reading, like you would read a book. And that's just familiarization, because I think Sheila kept mentioning Rasik. And often what happens to writers is we forget that we are Rasiks also, because we become detectives. You're reading every book to see what you can steal, to see how you can take, when I laugh in a book now, I stop and I say, wait, how did he make me laugh? And I go back and I track it down and say, oh, okay, that's the structure of the laugh-inducing thing. So sometimes I must force myself to say, Jerry, this is a book that you will just read. So you lie in bed and you just read the book the first time. And when you put it down, do you feel as if you could live with this book? Could you have a intense affair with this book? Because if you choose to translate anything, it's going to be in your life for the next 6, 8, 10, 1 year. You're going to live with this book. So you have to be sure that you can live with a book before you start translating it. So the first read is that. The second read is aloud, because you want to hear the rhythms of it. Now that I would not inflict on anybody, because I read the way I read. And really, one of the things that makes everybody so shy is because people mock each other in India about accents. And stop it! Stop mocking other people for their accents when they are speaking your language. They are coming to your language and they are trying. Respect the trying. Okay? So makes me so annoyed when people do that. And okay, anyway, this is not the place for this little rant. But I'm saying I read it aloud to myself to see what music and rhythm I can. And then the third reading is the reading when it's standing in front of you and you're saying, Allah tu karam karna, Maula tu rahm karna, Vaq Devi tu dekh le, Jesus, Mary and Joseph save souls. All of you come down. 33 crore gods also come down, guide my hands. Then you remember that you're supposed to be an atheist. Then you say, okay, if you're there, do it. If not, then I'm on my own here. Then it's just like froth and like commit to the paper. You commit to the paper, and then once you've committed, then you're like, child, kusti. Now you are wrestling with the book. Now it is like an intimate exercise where it is like all over you, and then it carries you. And like if you've made the intelligent decision of choosing a good book, then that wrestling is a great experience.
Bhai, what are you working on next? What can he translate next?
In fact, after finishing our reading, Jerry asked me, are you going to go for... next question.
Like what happens to Vipin afterwards, a sequel to the novel.
Let me tell you, though the last sentence is, should I kill myself or have a cup of tea? That is left open. Whether people do not know, readers don't know whether he's going to commit suicide or he's going to have his favorite tea. So here it is left open. The end of the novel is left open, and there is every reason that I should pick up the thread from what Jerry asked me. Are you going for the sequel? So maybe yes. There are many things open. Even his girlfriend, when he comes to know that she has committed suicide, nobody
don't
knows.
reveal everything.
No, nobody knows anything. Yeah. So even she can be alive. But I mean, there is a lot of scope for the sequel. So,
जल्द से जल्द आ रहा है आपके शहर में भाई मौजो का नया उपन्यास,
translated by Jerry Pinto.
पढ़ने ना भूलिएगा, एक्शन और इमोशन की पहली मिलन.
Jerry, would you like to read something from your translation, a part, an extra?
No, Takasang. He's the original. This is Goa. These are Konkani speakers. No.
That's what I was going
You read the same and I'll read it in English. So just a few, like 1-2 paragraphs. Sheila, 1-2 paragraphs के लिए time है?
One para.
ओक ना चल रहा हूँ सांगतंग. हाँ, okay, very good.
Which one shall I go for?
I think always do the opening paragraphs.
Okay,
For a novel, that's easiest.
Yes.
I'm seeing this book for the first time also.
चाची कुळी आयली, गॅस पेटयलो, वयर आदन दवरलें, उदक सळसळूंक लागलें. युरेका! पण आर्किमिडीस याद जावचे पयलींच जीब हुळहुळूंक लागली. कला आनी विज्ञान ही 2 तोंकां अशें म्हाका दिसतालें, पूण तांचो संबंद कितलो लागींचो तें च्या करूंक शिकलो तेन्ना समजूंक लागलें. च्या कशी जाली हाचे परस च्या कशी लागली हातूंत म्हाका चड मज आशिल्ली. पालो, साखर, दूद घालून गाळटसर म्हाका थार नाशिल्लो. कप तोंडाक लायलो आनी कश्टांचें सार्थक जाल्ल्याचें सूख मेळ्ळें. आरे, च्याचो वास आयलो तेले जाल्यार म्हाकाय गेली हाड. भितर बशिल्ले कडेन मान फरमायलें. हांवें पाल्यांतच थोडें उदक घालें, हयनयशें शिजयलें आनी दूद ओतून व्हरून दिली. घोट मारून तिणें तोंड वांकडें केलें. तूं पियेलो त्या च्याचो वास वेगळो आशिल्लो. ही च्या ती न्हय, साखर लेगीत ना सारकी. तोंड धापून हांवें कुलरभर साखर व्हरून तिगेल्या कपांत ओतली.
Okay. Once again, the urge for a cup of tea. I lit the gas and put the water to heat. The water begins to boil. Eureka! Archimedes comes to mind, but something else brought me up short. At that age, just out of school, the arts and sciences had always seemed like separate silos to me. But when I learned how to make tea, I understood how deep the relationship between the two is, a matter of chemistry and gastronomy. I could have learned a lot more about how tea leaves became tea, but I was far more concerned with how the brew tasted. I go through the motions quickly, barely containing my impatience, and then the cup to my lips, the first sips, the spreading joy. Are, I can smell tea. If you've made some, bring me a cup, my mother calls from within. I add some water, let the brew bubble for a while, splash some milk, and take it into her. She sips, makes a face. The tea you were drinking smelled different. This isn't that tea, and there's not enough sugar. I set my jaw, go to the kitchen, bring a spoonful of sugar, and put it in a cup. I want to say, now stir it, or must I do that too? But I stop myself.
On that note, I would like you to read the rest of this in the book. Read it in the original Konkani, read it in translation. The books will be available at GALF. And thank you so much for both of you for this wonderful conversation. And thank you all, audience. And Sheila, thank you. Hand it over to you again.
Lovely session. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Vinuta. Thank you, Bhai. Meena, Mama, Ranjit, Sagar, thank you very much for this evening. Thank you, International Centre Goa and Goa Writers, for this wonderful festival. This section of this festival, we now conclude. I wish everyone a good night, and I hope to see all of you for the sessions following tomorrow and the day after. Good night.
If Preetha Sardesai is still in the audience, could you please meet me near the stage? Yeah.